is me being in a place where I'd quit a job and didn't have one to go to, knowing that like I have deep interests in the way humans interact with things, but also the way things create economies and the way economies are made by people but don't always support people. At the time I was doing all this brainstorming, I was visiting a friend of mine, and he's kind of like the best and worst person to be around in those scenarios, because he's sitting there across from me in these conversations going, you're just coming up with all the reasons why you shouldn't be doing the thing you want to be doing. What's the workaround? And so, several weeks of those kinds of frustrating questions, and then several more weeks of vigorous brainstorming, and Ware seemed like my first step into an industry that I only kind of knew tangentially. My interest is more in supply chains, but this was a great way for me to get my feet wet and understand the way consumers interact with products before I get into working with the actual production. I think the most important role that we fill is educational. We obviously can't, we're a business, we're a for-profit business, we can't sustain ourselves on giving people information, but I think that it is the reason people are so eager to support us financially is because they know that they're feeding into a larger ecosystem of kind of holistic living resources. It's kind of a hard question to answer because it is certainly more expensive. There's no easy yes or no. It's certainly more expensive than herbal essence from Walmart, which comes out to a little bit under half at cost per ounce of the product as these. However, it's a lot less than a shampoo or conditioner product that you would buy from your hair salon. And so then once you look at the solid shampoo and conditioner that just get so many more uses per dollar spent, it very quickly becomes an incredibly cost-effective solution. And price, aside from the upfront investment where maybe a container is concerned, or in the case of the bars, you spend $16 on a bar of soap up front. That bar of soap lasts you more than 2 bottles of your salon shampoo, and it's already less expensive than your salon shampoo. So yeah, competitive from a price perspective, but only because, and this is the really important part to the sustainability aspect, because they're really functional products that work really well. And if they were the quality of the herbal essences and more expensive, they'd just be more expensive. I think the first step for any business, whether it's food industry or retail or even an office building, is taking an audit of what comes into the business in terms of physical material, and that's literally everything from the unrequested mail you receive to the packaging around the materials you purchase for use or sale to the actual materials and products that you're purchasing. All of these things, all these things are coming into your business, and then the second part of that audit is looking at what leaves. So what are you sending out in a trash can and some people just start with the trash can audit, right? So they look at what is in a trash can in their trash can once a week, like literally pull everything out of their trash can and look at what's there and how can they minimize that. You know, restaurants offering compostable cups and lids and straws and to-go containers. If you're not also offering composting services to the people who are receiving those materials, you are just putting more trash. It's no different. You're putting more trash in the world. The only difference, arguably, is that you have fewer petroleum products that you're investing in, and that's certainly progress, but it misses a big gap. And if you're telling people that the products you're giving them are compostable and using that as a marketing leverage, but not offering the composting service, that's what we would call greenwashing. My advice is just to take a really critical look at what's coming in and what's going out, and don't assume that any of it is necessary. And if someone told you you had to get rid of all of it, what would you start with? What is the thing you throw away the most of? What is the thing that comes in the most of that you don't use in terms of like packaging around products and things like that? Can you switch to a different company? Can you ask that company to package it differently? We do that every day, and I think that's one of those things that people take for granted, that you don't have any control over what businesses send you, and that's just not true. We were among the people asking them to use no plastic and, you know, switch to smaller boxes, or this doesn't need to be shrink wrapped, all these things. It's these conversations that we have that are very specific. And then what can you reuse is another obvious one. We get into this mode of, because frankly it takes time to clean things or to organize things that we see as waste that would be easier to put in a bin and move forward and start with something fresh. So I think on the one level, yes, I think governments should be doing, our local governments, our county governments, our state governments, our federal governments should be doing so much more. In the meantime, if we don't take some level of accountability, we can only hold them so accountable if we're not doing what's within our means. In my personal life, I have gone through stages. When I first opened Ware, I would say I spent about 6 months probably very diligently mitigating just about any waste that came into my life that was not, that was single-use packaging and things like that. Particularly through the pandemic, one of my things throughout the pandemic has been, yes, plastic is a huge problem in the world. Trash and waste are a huge problem in the world. But also people dying en masse from a disease that's taking over our planet right now. That is a much more critical thing that needs to be solved. And so I'm not saying that there's no point in making any sustainability efforts over the past 2 years, but I think that, I hold a lot of space for not only myself, but anyone who, once they were able to get coffee again, went and got coffee and didn't remember to say, to bring their own mug. I have a small trash can under my sink in my kitchen, and it doesn't get any food in it because I compost and I obviously recycle really thoroughly. And so I probably empty it once a month max, but it doesn't really get full. I do, I do definitely consider what I'm purchasing in a grocery store, which is the place where most waste comes into our lives in terms of recurring purchases. When I'm purchasing food products, I absolutely consider, there are things I haven't eaten in a long time, not because I don't like them, but because the waste is just excessively, for lack of a better term, wasteful. But my efforts towards minimizing the waste in my personal life have done what is absolutely part of this movement, is they have forced me to find ways to purchase products without waste, which usually means things that haven't traveled very far, right? Almost all of the packaging that exists in the world is so that you can travel with a product or a material or substance from one place to another. And so when you're trying to avoid that, the best thing you can do is go straight to the source. So whether that's buying from the person who made an object locally at a market or whatever, or farmers markets are a big way that people reduce waste in their produce consumption. We also have great resources for lower waste food consumption in Asheville. The French Red Co-op downtown has an incredible bulk room that is one of my favorite places to not only get the essentials that I would be purchasing anyway, but try new things in really small amounts without throwing a bunch of a product away if I don't love it. I have a lot of hope for it getting easier for everyone, and I'm someone who knows a lot about this stuff, and I'm not doing it perfectly. One example is the Everyday Radiance and Modern Empress body oils that we carry by Salud. While Allison is sourcing these from small organic family farms, or organic practice family farms in Mexico for the most part. This is a sesame oil that she's sourcing really intensively. And so things show up like this, wrapped in cardboard and, usually more paper stuffed on top. And this would be, many boxes that are about this size inside of a larger box that has more cushioning around it because we're dealing with glass and liquids and all of that. We'll use those materials or materials from other purchases, and then it gets some combination of this craft paper adhesive tape and this water activated paper tape, both of which are fully recyclable. and goes off to someone. If they're a new customer, we send them a little card that says like, hey, pardon the mess, we reuse the materials every chance we can, and so this may not look pristine when it arrives to you. So one of the ways we do that is with this water activated tape that has our logo on it and little drawings of some of the products that we use. We do it by including little note cards to people who don't know what to expect when they receive products from us. We don't print shipping packing lists or mailing slips. Our mailing labels are 100% recyclable. We're doing what we can on our end to minimize. What people do with that material once they get it is up to them. At the very least, we have extended the life of that substance and kept it out of the landfill that much longer and not purchased virgin materials along the way.